Hi, Lauren.
Oh, where is it? Okay. Sorry, my desktop is not the cleanest.
I'm gonna try to read like this. I mean,
Yeah, sorry. Can't find it. Which one's it called? Sorry.
I fell asleep
VBI
outside.
It's gonna be quarters.
Okay.
And I don't really ever get burned, and you've only gotten burned once.
You did it.
I don't feel like I did.
You got it?
Yeah.
Everyone good?
Let me
You good?
here.
Yes,
Asian women are a sexual fantasy, a fantasy that white men fetishize and obsess over. Pretty little low slash women who white supremacy save us from the Asian body inside of colonial domination. Domination creates our identity to become objects of sexual fantasies of white supremacy, patriarchy creates psychological bonds, internal stage of sexual objectification makes our bodies worth with white men do not accept as Leo part 14. If white spread is a phenomenon, white men in yellow fevers and corn filled with men celebrating special into the Asian woman's hell fundamentally having a means of disaster to white men. We are rendered invisible. The white male hero, the act, cultural, patriarchal, the colonial passage when a white man is an Asian community because an Asian man and kills him. White is surprised the stereotyping of Asian women has to object to friend. This comes to the imperialist social white supremacy equating whiteness with power and prestige and sense and colonialism, internal sexual objectification, the link to depression, and lack of political efficacy for Asian girls growing up seeing the eyes of their identity, sexual fantasy above us, and Asian Americans face constant interrogation. Western beauty standards are productions of whiteness, and Asian American women constantly accused they can't see themselves, they become more white with it, which creates and perpetuates structural oppression. Trow 14. Assumptions are made about what people undergo double life. They want to live more white questions of what East Asian women sensitive it's a hint of hating, it's a shaming. Standards of the person entangled diagnosis of race and power. People think that there's implicit intelligence over some value and complicated sense of people in the center of the conversation. To be women, we need to see beautiful Asian women. They're all women who is beautiful to Western standards, bigger action from and people who are in power and control the media have different structures of certain races. The concept of beauty standards, the Eastern will be questioned every has things to people of comments to be generous, and Caucasian people are brown-eyed and blue-eyed. Cosmic surgery and seen a personal aesthetic ideal, and Asian American women's eyes is always seen as something missing. There's an affect desire to give less capacity into true see impressions and produce categories of identity that's seen one on whole and incomplete. Thus we affirm that the use of less capacity is immoral when it used a mechanism reinforcing violence and whiteness. MRS 17. Ally is one of the plastic surgery in the United States. There's no question that East Asian double as a symbol of beauty there, and they're uncommon and make the eyes feel larger. Something that East Asian culture is a beauty ideal accessible. People are watching the video with beautiful and powerful based in a beautiful Asian blessed Westernization to the assessment and procedures giving it American beauty too much power, and this creates melancholy. The idea of social groups are incomplete or something. There's something missing and lost larger and hegemonic character identity that within a society reinscripts their identity constantly. This creates identity that goes extinct and attempts to assimilation triangulate Asian Americans are being almost white by non-minority and still not good enough by the partial for understanding and is 17. Applying fortune suffering is gender sexualized and post-colonial how to be constituted within courses less characters and prolonged painting experience non-dominant culture race and gender thing involved with loss of identities that are devalued those who are non-majority group chance to relentless suffering and the devalued identify the individual connected designs and neutralizes selfhood and calling aliens as unresolved possibilities my useful considered and unstimulated Asian American the national fabric supposedly within racial minority to refuse the possibility of mourning when they cannot get over the lost idea of whiteness since they are perpetual the basis of skin color and racial minds by the white majority and exposure to racial melancholy is key to community building through mourning whiteness building obliteration of minority subjectivity the affective mechanism through particular spaces that the more racial melancholy and embracement of melancholy racial creates affective investments in ourselves and community that's rolled about who best creates community for the oppressed Arianist too. Turning white does not work for Asian Americans dominant perceptions of racial difference are excessively foreign and by reaching structural racial stereotypes the individual cultural injury of social evaluation and solely personal harm for community rebuilding through all mourning of lost individual group identities means of total recollection and engagement can be a racial melancholy reaction by which the minorities can constitute dominant white culture effort to assimilate without theorization of such a racial melancholy associated with the ambivalence rage and anger or the internalized refractions of ecology whiteness with obliteration and cherished minority subjectivities and we embrace melancholy and knowledge potentiality reject the notion that minority groups are just short or non-whole. This is what whiteness understands our bodies are to rather be embrace melancholy mechanism to create change and understand the zone of conflict that builds communities 10 and Wu 10. Assimilation is negotiation between mourning and melancholy. This allows the understanding of negotiation of racial melancholy to conflict rather than damage. Attention to racial melancholy conflict rather than damage. Moves to the concept of politics and victim group attached with the assumption that minor subject permanently damaged notion of communal rebuilding builds a foundation of reparation. Melancholy is not a pathological form of structure. Feeling melancholy is a pathology that is not a pathology that's integral to daily existence. And melancholy is a mechanism to construct identity and take her dead with us the various battles that we wage. It struggles that results in change, refining, productive, and necessary process of work of rebuilding. And state reform and institutional change foreclose the fear of Asian Americans. This forecloses the Asian anger of Asian Americans. It the anger that reifies the problem and illustrates the problem. This is the model minority taking over Asian American lives. Baxi in Boston 14. Landfill, which is the level of Asian Americans, the involvement of drug cheating causes huge within the representation of anger and formation of ethnic identity, premise of the great community of Asian America requires the racial expression of anger, the display of anger from privilege that has proposed to Asian Americans. The viewer's own anger illuminates the very way the normative epistemology of Asian Americans with the Asian American anger is unacceptable uneasiness of insulation of Asian American anger, social protective power, and the model minority method, ability to constitute also change the range of a subject's emotional experience, cutting hard experiences, and underview. First, spec is good now with any arguments and generics. This standard is the first argument is weighing ground. It points that the different kinds of humans are incomparable, i.e. different authors even disagree with humans intelligence mean, which means that we can't have a debate, forcing me to defend the entire resolution is true general and you can literally pick out and have it just to anything, which means that our arguments are weak because to achieve accuracy. Also, having discussion about particular types of rather than principle of allowing B point is that clarity without spec it's unclear whether to defend technology or technology yet to come with what I defend which kind of technology, which cues RNA capacity also forcing me to have to defend technologies in the future or technology has which it also excuse the ground argument sees that lots of authors agree on human activity even means, which means that links back to all two impacts of weighing ground versus the ability are committed so the ability to actually weigh between the future realms is that debate would never be. Also, in-depth debate is better than breadth debate because we are able to actually analyze things where we talk about we just talk about different topics. No one actually goes home and researches those topics more. He is a stable advocacy argument. The only argument we have to stable advocacy to the 1AC also forces better engagement on the 1AC and forces the 1AC conversation to happen. Also, real world education, the ETT is always particular, never directed to discussing certainly an emphasis discuss station more accurately. Mukherjee and Nita Rumlin. There's no radicals anymore with judgment that collides with the first principle given their pragmatism suggests that they, as we discussed in the human enhancement, looks at considerations of favor enhancement and trophy, judgment for appreciation, building radicals and against hands which should be rejected and permits to be human achievement which cannot be achieved for all reasons are duly considered by case. Most of the stuff in the interview was half exempted.
Oh, okay.
If that helps you.
Okay. So, did you delete anything?
I mean, it's not that I didn't.
But you just went. Okay.
It's not that I didn't like. I mean, it's like those arguments weren't made; they were like exempted.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, you ready?
I'm good.
What does it mean to embrace melancholia?
Okay, sure. Melancholia is a methodology. It's a recognition that minority bodies feel this sort of almost like a loss by living within white America. That loss is due to the fact that society has scripted our bodies to be missing something. That is what creates those who are marginalized groups in society.
That's like that they feel bad. What does it mean to embrace that?
Sure, to embrace that means that we have to recognize it exists, 2, recognize why it exists,
okay,
and 3, ask questions about why it exists and how we can use that melancholia to build community and things like that.
Okay. How is the AC an example of human enhancement technology?
Sure, we talk about a cosmetic surgery, the double eyelid surgery. We said that's an instance of human enhancement technology, and that is a bad thing.
Why is it an instance of it?
1, if it's any definition of human enhancement technology. 2nd, it falls into cosmetic surgery, which means that it definitely is human enhancement technology.
That's fine. Why is that key to solving and letting us embrace melancholia? Why does the plan do that?
Sure. We affirm that is first is the analysis question. We analyze that surgery exists as a function of whiteness. It exists because it wants us to conform to Western standards of beauty. So you see this in Asian American communities where a lot of parents are like, oh, you should get this double eyelid surgery because you'll look prettier, you'll look better.
Eyelid surgery?
That is not the question at hand. We affirm it in the instance in which it's used to reify whiteness, i.e., we use it to reify whiteness and become
how do
look
you
more
know
white.
when it is used to reify whiteness?
It's not a question of.
Can I finish my question?
Sure.
How do you know when it's used to reify whiteness and when an Asian person wants?
Okay,
to
answering the first question, it's not a question of when we know it's trying to reify whiteness, but rather the analysis of how it has reified whiteness in order for us to understand how when we reject it and when we can see it as not reifying whiteness. What was the second question?
It was just 1, so how's that any different? How do you know the difference between when it reifies whiteness and when, an Asian person wants it themselves?
Okay, I think we just answered that question.
Okay, that's fine. Why do, Asian Americans face constant interrogation, and how does the AC solve for that?
The interrogation card is a chow card. It talks about how Asian American, both men and women, are encouraged and sort of scripted into getting this surgery, but Asian American women specifically are constantly interrogated. If they get the surgery, they're asked, why are you trying to look more white? If they don't get the surgery, they're told, why aren't you getting the surgery? You can look prettier.
Do you get any offense based on your own identity?
I don't know what that means.
So, does your own identity, is this case a representation of your own identity?
I would say that I'm an Asian American woman, yes.
Okay. Sounds good. How does, the AC reject that minority groups are destroyed and non-whole?
Sure, that's melancholia. Melancholia has many facets
Okay,
to
but that
it.
isn't the AC plan, so how does, like, the plan text lead to...
Okay,
like,
well,
projecting
one, we garner
melancholia?
offense off of the 1AC methodology. We use melancholia to investigate why things like the double eyelid surgery are bad. That methodology is key to...
Okay, so it's the speech act of the AC.
No.
Okay.
That is not what a methodology
That's
is.
fine. Starting prep.
Thank you.
Did you characterize the AC as identity politics?
Depends on what you mean by identity politics, I guess.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, stop. I have a minute 15 left. It's in the dock. The order is going to be one-off case.
Oh, case.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Does everyone want to be on the email chain? Because there wasn't one before.
Oh.
That'd be-
I'm good. Yeah, I'm also fine.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'll call for it if I need that.
Okay. Please, can I just put it on your email?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, it's just uploading. It's taking a second. I don't really know why. It's just document. Okay.
Do I do anything right?
Okay, it's not ejecting. I think
Go across the hall. And
it
say
should be
that
fine. Sorry.
Vida and Amit requested for popcorn to be popped for us. Just one bag. I said said it because I know you'll eat some, so I'm gonna go ahead and put your name in it too. Jillian, do you want some too?
Sorry, what did you call it?
Okay, she didn't want to do it. I'm the only
It's
one that has
VBI17
to fight.
quarters.
It's like
I
all of
see.
us hungry.
I know, I didn't want to just say I wanted this stuff.
Okay, and the order is going to be the off first at the bottom, T, and then.
Wait,
It's just on the dock. Here, I'll show you.
what? Off first.
Yeah, then case.
The off is at the bottom.
Yeah, it's just here,
Okay.
and then the turn. Just on the document, not. Yeah. Sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah.
You're welcome. We're trying to be student judges.
And the interp is not the doc. I don't like that. I'll just go
The
slowly.
interp is what?
I'll just say the interp. I don't know why I didn't copy and paste into the doc, but I'll just say it slowly.
Is this not the interp?
No, because that's just the definition.
Oh.
Okay. Everyone ready?
Yep.
A is the interpretation you have to defend that HETs on balance or on whole are immoral. B is the violation. She specifies one type of HETs is moral in certain circumstances, which means that she violates the T-shell and multiple interpretation. The resolution of generic statements since the last quantifier determiner means debate is supposed to be about HETs in general, not any subset. Leslie. Generic statements such as dogs may able to express general claims rather than about particular individual generics not involved. The use of quantifiers such as all or most generics may express using bare proposed ducks as preferred. Since she's pressed her linguist to set the nuances of the English language, she's most likely to give the best account of the text in the resolution. Be in violation, they specify the type of HT standards. One is textuality, don't mean the text of resolution between the don't affirm textualities of it or I. It always another standard determines that constitutes legit after 9 grams incoherent to give an argument just because it's more fair since it destroys the base for debate. B's argument isn't a T vote next since it'll validly ask you to do better debating in the context of the tournament given resolution, so it's possible to endorse accuracy. Also means you reject their interpretations that lack of metric to access to truth, stability, accuracy of the topic definition, Nebel 15. Pragmatic reasons are completely irrelevant, rather likely inferior to semantic reasons they cannot justify in terms that are ruled out in semantic grounds. If the resolution doesn't mean X, then they don't know how much you better debate X. Even if the resolution might mean X or Y, then debaters can contact pragmatic various standards of truth-based or accuracy, C intent grammar, non-usage of truth-based or debate-based grammar limits. Also, is the semantics comes first because you can change pragmatics based on your debate to whatever phrase you use. So semantics is the only interpretation that doesn't matter based on the debater. Two is limit the explode limits are indefinite. HT's the AC gets affected one or times functionally indefinite burden on the AC because you always on the negative, you always have this. We often say heals she gets perfect after the rapid no. I react with no, I didn't give him bad, perhaps in giving you a structural advantage. Heals education if I can't raise your we can't have a nuanced debate. The limits key to participation and limit top to drive down participation to force people out of the activity to make creating a mass burden to participate, which makes it an independent vote affairs. You can't objectively decide the winner unless you debate about equal footing. Education in the long term to take away from debating constituents purpose vote and jurisdiction independently. You can't vote for a case that doesn't affirm. Using competing interpretations. T1 of usability is done by the A. It's a gut check, which is arbitrary. B. We debate over right lines, which constant competing interpretation. Drop debate around T1s or drop an argument is the equivalent of 7 schools. The last shift is different debate in the lawyer. B. A. 7 schools to debate about long after office one year. New apps makes my often repellent. B. And incentivized has to be non-topical until the 1 year destroying pre-round base for prep 2 is the only way to deter non-topical. Essential loss overrides the competing incentive to read on the ballot. On the case. 1, turn the asphetization of identity politics out of its own motivation. The relevant question not who we are, but rather how we think, focusing on the former distraction of Ray Chow, 98. Instead of simply perpetuating revolutionary terrorism and its celebration of the testimony is the investigation of the structure of power that would give cultural studies to sustenance, integrity as vital pedagogical practice. Students would simply not be told to reject the matter discourse and the belief they are turning the other culture. They would be able to overturn existing boundaries of knowledge and the fact that they continue to find their own discourse. Question of gender representation of be dealt with the existing responsibility. Engage in their facility dismissing arguments on deconstructing the ideal assumption of discourse of opposition and resistance as well as discourse of mainstream power needs to continue to train ourselves to read arguments and then discussing them functionally or prematurely in order to ask what our circumstances or warrants such argument, no matter how preposterous makes sense, like what assumption to produce medieval fashion and question of pedagogy demand for reiteration in order for cultural studies to remain as critical and political emphasis. 2, turn the ass visualization of a massive and interconnected struggle against a single dominant force in society reproduces that subjugation of the oppressed and diminishes the importance of struggles against oppression. This is especially true because the reference to the understanding which undercuts the motivation as the act as his argument instead pauses is demoralizing. Chow 93. The mouse is producing its power in the way of terms of oppression and victimization. Alternatively, we are being used mouse terms precisely that state of object and state of identification of male assumptions of all people in non-Western culture to jeopardize certain all subsequent need for generalized West because the representation is the other section towards the class and intellectual hierarchies within culture and the diverse power relation structure and the mouse mode of inquiry and validation to produce the same way of talking about lack self-alternative victimization so forth. Drawn from indeterminately winning intentional spelling the tricky alternative political register such case fails organization take the root of self-organization cut the card there. 3 turn validation of repression such as an important concern that it overrides everything else including the topic actually treats the oppressed immediately because they're only important because they are oppressed. Child 93. The idea of violence and representation implies whether we speak for someone else we are interpreting our idea of where the process of interpreting means not only that we represent a certain historic other truth we are oppressed also means that there's an interest in deprivation only when it's repressed in some ways seen as like the investment in repression or victimization partakes in fruiting and Lacanian notions of black way the truth and black mouse justifies speaking for someone else and I'm trying to type us call balance of representation with the mouse demonstrates the circuit prototype which calls in capitals and others deprivation or refusing to acknowledge on precedent and down 4 using debate with all turn using the debate with all of his investment and privileged perspectives consumption of understanding claim that they advance a micropolitical cause no they're just exploiting social issues to win debate around debate advocacy is BS advocacy challenge 93 the difficulty facing us students from privileged backgrounds western and non-western conform behaviorally never aspect of elitism social origin nonetheless the dedication of indicating some alternative terms the Jews system idealize versions of ourselves refuse to hear resistance between constant manner of own speech complexity and balance even though the assessment of the about be quick to point out this witness abandoned discuss the East in their career 24 their blended exploitation to make the East their career 5 term reducing complex and social structures to simple dichotomy between good and evil oppressed and oppressor hurts our ability to understand the truly complex nature of social structures instead quantifying discourse and reproducing the same hierarchies that they seek to append. Child 93. Essentially, social culture and history of the otherness is entering from the test claims of opposition and victimization, really mostly absurd and uncool. Sexual sexual radical racial diversities are a million the name of question is all these new solidarity to ideological promises remain unconscious. These new solidarities are often informed by a strategic attitude repeats so they seek to overthrow as intellectual battles we are afraid about some of the words oppositional standpoint not doing anything different than the enemies most certainly do directly downtrodden arms of those who seek the survival academics intellectual must confront not the victimization but society lodged with the victimization in solidarity with the oppressed with the powerful and purpose ironically it came into their oppositional viewpoint the widening gap between the press and homeless of the world and upper mobility they gain from such worlds belongs to the underview. One on the spec code shell. She says that weighing gravity is impossible without a specification on. A, she says that different types of technology are incompatible, but no, this is solved by a topical version that she's not. She can have an advantage about this sort of thing. Also, all of her pics often doesn't actually make any sense because if the resolution was generic, then a pic wouldn't negate because I wouldn't prove the opposition, the opposite of it because it would be a generic. She said clarity without a spec sounds clear. What do you define technologies that exist or are not? That's not true because you can you define HCs overall, which means that you can tell me when that would happen. Also, this doesn't actually solve for any of our arguments because you wouldn't spec you can spec anytime in the future. Also, like if she was going to go for an advantage, this means that it would happen like right now because her advantage is happening right now. Also on 3, she said the lots of scholars disagree on what human enhancement is, but no, you can just provide a definition in the AC. This isn't something that you need to spec. Respect would probably harm this because if lots of authors disagree, then this means we can't actually give generic specification debate because no one will know whether that specific type is human enhancement technology. She says also force her to defend everything, which means there are infinite amounts of pics, but no, because I can't read the pic if the pic is something negate. She says the debatability is key. I call up this unstable advocacy is key. I also call up this because she's not able to have a stable advocacy if it's only one type of debate where I come into the right expecting it to be all sort of HTs. Also, just overall to the round, I went on T and like the turn critique.
Okay, cool. You good?
Yeah.
Who's read an AF with my AF is an advantage?
Your app hasn't been broken yet. No one's cut it. You could have.
Okay, so no one has read it as an advantage.
You could have read it as an advantage.
Okay, I could have done that.
Yeah.
Cool. What would you have read if I read it as an advantage?
I could have run similar arguments, but I wouldn't.
Similar
have read
arguments
T.
like the ones you read? Okay, cool. How differently would you have engaged the AF?
Okay, so 1, I would have had more ground for like counterplans, stuff like that.
Okay, so you would have run counterplans that talked about the AF?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, really? Then why didn't you run one this round?
Okay, because it's specific advocacy, which means
I disagree. Okay, let's move on. You say onto the turns. Your first turn, after you pulled out your generic ATKAFs file, says that it's an identity politics. What do you prove that the AF is identity politics?
Okay, so the first turn is talking about, you said that like this is based on your identity. Even if it's
something
not
based on
your
identity automatically
like,
becomes identity politics?
Do you want me to finish the question? Okay, there's 2 reasons why. First, you're talking about your own identity. 2, even if it's not your own identity and it's not because of that, you're still like talking about the identity of a certain person in order to win you a debate round. That links into like the other term.
Why is it in order for me to win a debate round? Why can't I say that a methodology is good?
Okay, do you want to win this debate round? Is that why you're here?
I mean, I don't think it's a.
Is that
That's
why
a
you
question.
broke the
Why can't I say that there's a methodology?
Okay,
That
this is
needs
just
to vote on.
critiquing the methodology.
Okay, sure it is. Let's go into the next child card.
Okay.
You see that there's a interconnected struggle. Do you respond to the fact that there is an interconnected struggle?
So it's basically talking
Does
about...
this contest the warrant of that at all?
Yeah.
Okay, point to me a part in the card that contests
Okay.
the warrant that there is an interconnected struggle.
So it talks about... Let me find the warrant.
Okay, cool.
Do you want me to find it or not?
No, fine, I can look for myself. Let's go to the next card. You say that there is a valorization of oppression as an important concern. Is oppression not an important concern?
Okay, it is an important concern, but in the conception of the AC, that's bad because of
So the 1AC says it is an important concern and we should do something about it, and that's bad.
No, you're saying that like oppression is an important concern. Like these people you can only bring up because they're oppressed, which means that like you're taking away from anything that like of the Asian identity that isn't oppressed.
Okay, sure. You say on the fifth argument, it says that we reduce complex social struggle to a simple dichotomy.
Yeah.
How do we do that?
You say it's all against whiteness.
Okay, so when is whiteness ever good for us?
Okay, it's not saying that whiteness is necessarily a good thing. It's just saying...
So you have
like,
conceded that whiteness is a bad thing.
do you want me to finish your question?
Yeah, no, answer this one.
Okay. It's basically talking about, even if whiteness could be a bad thing, simplifying it means that we aren't able to, like, 1, actually engage in a methodology that's a good thing, and 2, means you can modify discourse.
Okay, sure.
You're not, like, understanding the true complex
Let's go to
structures.
the seventh argument.
Mhm.
You say that there's a rhetoric of
I didn't-
dehuman. Wait.
I didn't read that card.
Okay, could you find out what you didn't read?
Yeah.
I didn't read here down. I'm gonna cut that out and then I'll start prep. Okay, starting prep now.
Sophie, could you have to remind both of
Yeah.
If you're gonna do that, I might as well.
Okay. She asked, y'all.
All good. Here. And I'm just putting our emails. I'll delete this stuff from my speech doc. I don't have hers downloaded since I just got it off the thing.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Sending yours is.
Okay. Sounds good. Oh, I didn't read the sixth one. I think I forgot to take that out.
The sixth one?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll delete that.
Okay, 134. We're just gonna go AC overview, under AC overview to the AC, the underview T, and then
Vida.
oh.
You're gonna have to repeat it.
You missed the one I
Perfect. Let's go.
Woo. Do you mind moving your phone? Oh yeah, sorry. Here's my.
You want some, Gillian?
Okay, we're just gonna go AC, starting with an overview, and it's gonna go to the go to the underview, then it's gonna go to theory, and then I'll respond to the case terms.
So an AC, underview.
AC overview on the AC,
Okay.
and the underview,
Okay.
and then theory,
Theory.
and then the case terms.
And then the terms. Okay.
Yep.
So theory.
Is there a new doc?
No.
I'm sorry, y'all.
Okay, is everyone good?
We are an affirmation of the Asian American identity to understand the mechanism of how oppression operates. I have viewed it to alter the society that exists, be objectified, sexualized, and the little white boys think that talking anime to me is a good idea. White supremacy reduces them into heteronormative colonial regime. They walk into an Asian country, kill an Asian man, and seduce the Asian woman, take the drag later, lose father, treasure reward. These are reductions of identity that produce psychological violence. Also answer back most of the case series because they talk about how we reduce identity. No, we are investigation how identity is multifaceted. We are refusal to be categorized, which means that we definitely do not link any of those from the internalization of oppression. We hate ourselves and we aren't good enough. We try to find mechanisms for ourselves with white prejudice and success. White supremacy will never accept us. We are perpetual foreigners. This also answers back her card about we make binaries. Just to be binary. She's not proving why whiteness is good for us, which means that she's not contested the warrant at all. Which means that we are always too nerd. We don't speak English well enough. We are model minorities, so racism doesn't fucking matter for us. So what happens? A mechanism of racism methodology. Melancholy rage refuses to allow whiteness to reinscribe the notion that a minority was broken in one whole. Several net benefits to our affirmative diversity, community healing net benefit. The only way to be able to heal community to recognize that melancholy is also controls a prerequisite to any of your organs because access to multiparty theory impacts people. People will never be able to investigate these sort of notions that oppression exists within institutions. Instead of debate, which is an abstract argument that happens in debate too. Third is psychological. Second is psychological violence. And how we are only to resolve psychological violence if we investigate melancholic rage. We have an understanding of how oppression operates, or how we reify and build coalitions against that oppression. Third is that the social and melancholy argument. We said this is key to community building. You concede our role about, which is how you have to vote for the debate who best community healing. All of her textuality themes are in truth testing. Whether or not we prove the truth or falsity of the resolution, which is not a responsive argument to our role about. She's also not approved truth testing to be a good argument, which good role about, which means that you should not naturally default to our role about. We are prior questioning anything else in the ranks and the role about, which you vote for debate who best creates a community for Asian Americans. Next, onto the interview, her overture argument. She has forced me to she's conceding an argument as to why they're different authors to create things, which means that you force me to defend contradiction. You force me to defend only means it's possible to affirm because you always point out that contradiction and proving that different authors mean different things, which means that there's impossible to affirm, way impossibility against all of our standards because impossibility means that there's no way that we can actually logically affirm, which means that always all of her arguments. The second, the footnoting argument, you always footnote the existence. We'll never have that conversation about Asian Americans, i.e. the 1AC. There's never a 1AC that reads an advantage about Asian Americans. Also, so forcing you to have this conversation centers the conversation. Otherwise, you just try to pick out of something if you defend a whole res, which means that it always shifts the conversation away from us, which means that that's another dissent and why you should reject her interpretation amongst debatability. One is that debatability continues because if there's a contradiction, the 1AC debatability is impossible the 1A and the 2A, which means that argument outweighs onto theory. First, counter-interpretation. You must defend my affirmative. This is also limits on. Second is counter-interpretation that you be made defend the 1AC. We can see several arguments here. First, the impossibility argument, which is another offensive reason why you further counter-interpret. We cannot. First on textuality, you have to win a true or false. You have to win the second. Second, that our ground argument outweighs your textuality because the key to determining whether or not you can make the textuality claim. So you can that way. You have ground to make that textuality. The point is that textuality out. Textuality just begs the question of whether true testing is true, which means that our rule about next comes first. Third is that textuality doesn't work to determine what is true, false, or negative. So topic literature determines that what topic next falls into the same topic, which means that helps all of your offense on the limits are being one. Our first counter-interpretation solves your limits on the second that weigh impossibility against limits. Even if there's no limitation on the rest, you should have access to generics, case generics, which are all your case terms are better. All generics which are also better for critical exchange. What kind of topic it's a discussion is good to begin with, which means that argument outweighs onto your case terms. First on the child identity policy, we are not identity policy. You have not proven why this is second to abstraction. You say that this child justifies why we get rid of identity, which is a bad thing because that's abstraction, not thing. Then it's a view from nowhere. None that doesn't apply to a minority bodies onto the next child occur. You say that moralizing is bad. One, this results in just me assessing justify why we were formed. I don't give a shit about minority subjectivities, which means that argument doesn't matter. Actually, the only important is that this is the app. You say that we are centralization. We just say that people are oppressed, but no, this is the app. We say that there's analysis of how we can engage in the world, and it would become something other than being oppressed and become the subjectivity that's obliterated white supremacy. Onto the fourth argument, you say using exploitation. One, we have a warranted role to ballot as to why you should vote on this argument, which means that you should disregard it. Second, that it begs the question of whether the app is a good idea, and we've definitely won 4 reasons why the app is a good idea. 7 reasons why the app is a second. You make a dichotomy, you're wrong. We are not a dichotomy. We recognize that there are problems and fucked up shit that happens to the Asian American community, such as anti-blackness. We have to reify how we have to use melancholia to figure out how to rectify those problems. We should be not a dichotomy. We not say that we are always good or we are, and the other side is always bad.
What was the second counter-interp? The counter-interp we may defend. I affirmative. Okay. Order is going to be T case.
Where are you going to start on case?
I will start. I'll start on the no link argument.
Okay. So the turns, right? The child stuff?
Yeah. Not my no link, her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And on T, I'll start on my enter. Yeah? Everyone ready? Extend the interpretation. She doesn't have any offense on semantics, which means that if I went semantics, I will automatically negate extend the Leslie Clark talks about how the resolution is generic, and generics means you have to defend all types of HTs. She can't win on the textuality standard because she doesn't have a counter definition, which means I'll automatically negate there. On the textuality standard, one, she says it's a basic question of whether the resolution is true or false or not, but no, it's not a truth testing argument. It's just about the grammar of the resolution. Whether the grammar implicates is not about whether you need to prove it true. I still think you can have offense, like competing worlds offense. You just need to follow the resolution too. She says the ground is key to any sort of textuality arguments, but no, it's the other way around. Textuality determines the ground because we can only determine what ground you actually get based on what the resolution gives us. We can't come into the round knowing what I can say, what she can say without the resolution. The resolution is the starting point for the debate. It's the only way we can determine what arguments we have asked. She says next, just it begs the question of whether truth testing is true, but no, our response is not truth testing. Even if she does win this argument, it's just truth testing. She doesn't prove why truth testing isn't true, so that doesn't matter. Next, you can send the Nebel argument that you reject interpretation of the lack of metrics to access truthfulness, accuracy of topical definition. This also answers all of her truth testing claims, because even if she's going to go for the truth testing arguments, it means that that's all semantics is the only way to resolve those arguments. also, this is the reason why semantics comes first over pragmatics, because pragmatics, aren't completely irrelevant. It's just, lessly inferior to semantics, reason because those need to come first in order to determine what we have access to, which means that semantics comes first. Also, she dropped the second justification that pragmatics can be switched around to what debater wants to read. So if she wants to read a pic, she can just justify it off of pragmatic interpretation. So which means that's arbitrary and we can't stand. We can't have this on multiple rounds, which means that you automatically vote on the semantics debate. She has no offense under it. But even if you do vote on pragmatics. Two, you can extend the limit standard. They explode limits because if there's an infinite number of HTs that AC gets spec 1 or some type of condo, this is especially in the AF case, because it's not only she's just specifying a certain type of HT, but she's also specifying in a certain type of context that isn't verifiable, because I don't know when it's used to instigate violence, or when an Asian person just wants to get eyelid surgery. This means that all of her arguments about how plans come first and how that's the only way to resolve ability aren't true, because I can't resolve the debate when we don't know which apps are topical, because you don't know when it's used to actually instigate violence, and instigate whiteness, which means that you can't solve for this. Also, on the limits debate, it kills fairness, because you have to prep up the app before a round and have to react with literally no idea, and bad grip giving you instructional advantage. This also controls the internal link to any education we get from the round, because she says you get education by talking about a topical app, but no, I can't actually properly engage in the app if I don't know what if it's specifying a certain type, and then we can't have a proper methods debate. Also, limit skating any sort of participation in the topic is unlimited. Topics trying to participation force people out the outside of the activities, controls the internal link to any of her education arguments about Asian people in debate, and Asian people going against violence, because if she says that she gets pre-FIA arguments about how we need a debate in order to solve that racist violence, then that means that this comes first, because Asian people won't participate in debate, and any sort of people won't participate in debate if you leave them out of the activity, which means one, no one can engage in your methods debate, which means you can't solve, and two, is an independent voter that if you push people out of debate, that's an independent bad thing, because we can't talk about any sort of methods. Also, she's really unclear. She thinks that it's about her specific interpretation, but no, it's about the norm you set for debate, which means that all of her lens arguments go away. On the counter-interp, group the counter-interpretations are basically the same thing. Must versus may doesn't justify any sort of difference. Even this is bad because it sets a norm for debate. So it's not about whether your app particularly was a good idea. It's about whether having this sort of specification as a whole is a good idea, which is uniquely bad for all of the reasons above. Also, it doesn't solve any of the limits offense, because I couldn't have predicted what you read before round, because you broke new. Also, this can change on a case-by-case basis, because any single app that I go against, they can just specify that you read their interp. Go on to the case debate. Actually, I'm going to start on the underview. She tries to go over this impossibility argument that you can't affirm, but this doesn't actually make any sense insofar as the app can give a definition of what it is. This isn't something unique to the T debate or unique to the plans debate. This doesn't actually make any sense. All she says is it's footnote in the conversation, but no, if people are in debate anymore, then we can't engage in the conversation, because people will leave the activity. Also means I can't properly engage in your conversation, because I can produce my own method to combat whiteness. Go on to the case debate. Starting in a link argument, she says that she isn't categorizing people and she isn't based on her own identity. First of all, she is basing it on her own identity because she's basing it on her own experience to combat whiteness. Even if it isn't necessarily her own identity, it's the identity of a certain group of people which she's commodifying and using it to win a battle. So she definitely still links on the first child card. I'm going to go for this. She says that it's not identity politics, but it definitely is, but she's talking about either her own identity or an identity of someone else, and she's fetishizing it to get the ballot. It's not a relevant question of who we are, but rather how we think, and focus on the form of distracts a lot as she conceded this argument. Next, I'm going to go for the third child argument. She says that this analysis of how we engage, but no, their validation of oppression as such an important concern overrides anything else, because it treats the oppressed immunely, because you're only talking about them because they're oppressed, which means that she just reaffirms this oppression. It doesn't talk about how they can combat those methods. Next, I'm going to go for the fourth child turn. That talks about how using debate with all its investment in privilege renders any claim that that there's any advanced political no, they're just exploiting a sort of issue in order to win a debate round. She says that they have the role of valid, but this is just proving that this is another way to fetishize the debate round. She also says it begs the question of whether the app is good or not, but the app, this is a critique of the app for good or not, because she's just fetishizing in order to win the debate round, so it's necessarily a prerequisite argument. Also, going to go for the fifth turn. She says it's not a dichotomy, but no, because she's not understanding the complex struggle between them. She concedes that it's not just whiteness versus Asian people, it's a complex structure. So making this dichotomy hurts her ability to actually understand the truly complex nature. And this comes before any of her arguments, because in order for me to engage, in order for all of you to learn something, we have to learn about how oppression actually works. So it's pretty simple. She says that community healing is good, but turns all of her arguments also in psychological violence defeats the role of ballot.
Minute 35. tissue.
Sorry.
Okay, sorry, it's okay.
I meant to ask what was your answer to that too.
We're just gonna go theory, and then the turns. Actually, wait, AF, theory, turns.
Okay. We're on the app.
Just wherever you flowed the first overview in the 1AR.
Okay. So overview, theory, and then returns.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Is everyone good?
They can see a top-level framing argument, which is that we need to have community before we can engage things like your interpretation, which means that this is necessary in debate space. You can sit in unique claims that we are institutions, we are within an institution called debate, which means that we have to have that recognition to have community feeling. We need to actually engage in debate, which is a prereq to all your argument access and multiplier. We've made that wing argument already, which means you can vote on the app offense right there, which is the app is a recognition of melancholy is the only way that you can vote. But second is that the psychological violence impact, which you also can see that we don't have to understand how our identities are formed before we can actually engage in things. Also intersect all your turns arguments. Your turns arguments are contingent upon us saying that we are just one identity, one oppressed group, but no, we are saying that the 1AC is trying to make us more than that, a recognition that we are more than just oppressed. That is all the melancholia offense that you can see, that all the reasons why the methodology is good, the reason why we answer by your turns. Let's go into theory specifically. You can extend the second counter interpretation that we may specify the affirmative. You can see the argument I make into the underview, which is that you have forced contradictions, which means that, for example, different authors disagree on what human enhancement counter. Human enhancement force me to defend contradictions, which means it's impossible to affirm. Where you can create you this conceded impossibility outweighs everything arguments. You can evaluate that as over the textuality and limits claim. A sub-point is that you can see that there's no impact of textuality, which means that it just says that delineates kind of ground, but second is that continue the generics impact, which you can still apply generics from anti-blackness in response to the ad, or different kinds of melancholia bad or response to the ad that you could have read. You just didn't do, you chose not to do that, which means that we control the internally to all your funds. Also, you can see that generics control the internally determining what determining like things like critical education, which determines what kind of limits offense and textuality and substantive arguments matter. Also solves 100% your interpretation, but second is that impossibility means that there's impossible to affirm. You, the 1AC, will always point out contradictions to 1AC, which means that there's literally no way for the 1AR or 2AR to win in any debate, which means that argument definitely outweighs. Second is that you on the true testing claim, you said there's no true testing, it's a grammatical structure, but it begs the question of whether the grammatical structure of the resolution was true, or whether I affirmed the resolution in a grammatically correct way, and that is a true testing argument. You have not justified what true testing is true, and we've conceded. You can see that our roll about comes first, and because you've not read a true testing roll about, and we have warranted reason why our roll about is good to build community for individual spaces, which means that our argument definitely outweighs. But second is that you made I push people out of debate. One is that I've not pushed anyone out of debate. This is the first time I read the F. Second is that this is a new and two in our implication, which means that you should not evaluate. There's that this relies on the engagement claim, which we've already responded to with the generics argument. Also, it's already better because it introduces more generic arguments have to your critical education, which is also an argument that outweighs all of your textuality things. The textuality has zero impact. The when are not implicated in impact, which means the argument doesn't matter. On true the case terms, first on the case terms, you say that I can modify your identity. Maybe one. Our roll about indicates that it's a good idea. We reconceptualize what it means to win debate, which means that argument doesn't matter. You have conceded that's an argument. You can see that our roll about takes frames those arguments out. Second is that you go for the third term, which is that this is only impact, which also I only talk about the oppressed, but one is that the focus of the 1AC is that we are more than just oppressed. That's what we think. You can see a non-unique the society views us as oppressed already, which means that we are the only way to reify that, which means also try to reaffirm it, but also the fourth part term, you said we are just swinging social issues, but one, this is my social issue, so it's a question of whether or not I am exploiting my own social issue. You shouldn't make it to tell me whether or not I'm exploiting it. But second, that we have a warrant roll about, which also frames out this piece of offense, because we talk about why we have to engage in the 1AC is a good idea. Mode F, if you think the methodology is a good idea, she's conceding 100% of the affirmers, so you should outweigh all the offense right there. But also in dichotomy, we have you conceding the dichotomy, so we have also recognized that our community has been bad in certain ways, which means that we have not recognized that we are always good or always bad.
It's all good. Mountain.
Did you what?
Yeah.
Thank me, because I picked up your comment in this poem.
Oh, thank you.
Sega, do you know who won the Eve Eric debate?
No, she's
You're so at.
here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
No, this was not supposed to be forcing you. I was just like,
No,
wondering.
no,
No, we're not forcing you. Nick is forcing you.
Oh, you're trying to measure?
Yeah.
I was just asking. Don't.
I
Sorry.
mean, by extension, I'm also saying that the tournament needs to move fast because
Oh.
dinner starts at 45
Well, I
minutes.
mean,
Sorry.
Are we doing one more before dinner? Yes. And finals will be at 6:30, I believe.
I'll just not write out my RFD.
I didn't write one in there either. So.
When was the last time someone actually written out like a full RFD?
I do. Okay, yeah, this is what I thought. Do you want me to know?
I don't know what it is, so if you know it, then
I
sure.
know what it is.
Okay.
Congratulations to both debaters for making it to quarters of the VBI camp tournament. It is a 2-1 decision for the affirmative. Okay. So I'll go. I sat. So case debate. AF is straightforwardly ahead. None of the case turns are, like, the warrants in them are not extended in the 2NR, and none of them are weighed against the AF impact. The AF is the only one who's doing a semblance of weighing on the case debate. Psychological violence comes first. We have to understand our place in the community. So I think that even if I don't want to, like, wade through all the line by line on these case turns, like, the AF is just ahead on the framing for that. But I do think even if I were to wade through the line by line, I think the app has, like, persuasive responses to each of the turns. Then it's just, like, T. On T, so there are 3 arguments that the app has. The first one is that, like, engaging in a community is a prerequisite. The second one is that it's impossible because it leads to contradictions. And the third is that generic solve your offense. Generic solve your offense is first defense. So if she wins, like, if you don't have any other offense elsewhere, then there would still be a risk of neg offense. And second, I just don't have it in my flow in the 1AR. The impossible contradictions one, I don't think it was conceded. The neg says that you could just provide your own definition from an author, so you wouldn't be forced to defend multiple different definitions. So I don't think, like, even if you're ahead on the weighing debate, I don't think that you have offense there because there's a conceded response to it. And then the community as a prerequisite argument is conceded. So then I go on to evaluating whether the neg has offense and whether that offense outweighs. So in evaluating whether the neg has offense, there are 2 pieces of offense for the neg. The first one is the textuality standard. In evaluating the textuality standard, I have sort of competing claims. The AF says that there's no truth testing rule of the ballot that's justified, and you should prefer, like, yours because it's actually well justified. But in the 1AR, your response is, like, not explaining why your rule of the ballot takes out the impact of truth testing or anything. It's just saying cross-apply rule, like, yours presumes truth testing, like, very blithely. But I actually think she warrants, like, maybe it implicitly appeals to truth testing, but I actually think she warrants why truth testing, like, would be true in this instance. She says the resolution frames pre-round prep. She says that the judges are bound, the ballot attitude is better debating in the context of the resolution. These arguments warrant why proving the truth of the resolution is important, which means that I think that she's ahead on the semantics debate. If she's ahead on the semantics debate, then she wins her T interpretation, and I have to weigh it against the community as a prerequisite argument. I also think she's ahead on the limits debate because your response to this is just new in the 2AR. There was a participation impact that was conceded from the initial shell. So that she weighs in the 2NR against all of your arguments because you exclude people from the activity, which means you don't actually get to talk about your methodology. So now I just have this community as a prereq versus the participation and semantics offense, and here's where it gets really hard to evaluate because I don't think either of you does any, like, real direct comparison. So I end up thinking that the participation argument was, like, slightly better interacted because the community as a prerequisite is, like, we need to understand our place in the community before we can participate, but that seems to, like, appeal to participation, and her argument is that people, like, literally would not participate at all, which would seem to, like, mean that yours appeals to the higher impact that she is going for. So I would, like, that is my intuition on how these arguments would interact, given that there was, like, no explicit comparison by either debaters between these 2 impacts. I think that is the closest thing I can get to good comparison. The second closest thing I can get to it is the semantics argument about why the ballot attitude is better debating in the context of the resolution, and pragmatics can change every round. You can always justify your practice. This seems to, community as a prereq argument, seems to be a sort of pragmatic reason why your interpretation is good or why you need your ask specifically, which she says you can always just change your pragmatic interpretation based on arbitrary things that are self-serving, whereas the resolution is the objective basis. So those are the 2 closest things I have to a direct comparison between the 2 different pieces of offense on the theory debate. So I negate there.
I can go. You can go. Okay, cool. All right. I think that a lot of the issues in this debate is that there is a lack of impact comparison on both sides of this debate. I think you all do well in explaining or extending your own impacts, but never explain to me how to weigh between those two impacts, which leads to a lot of judge intervention in general. So I think that's probably why there are the different decisions that are happening, because I think we all see the debate similarly, but just the way we have to make our decisions means that we come up with different decisions. First is that I think that what gets you behind not Gillian, sorry, what's your name? Sophia. Sorry, because you're talking. Okay, Sophia, is that I think conceding the AF impacts on the overview portion of the debate in the 1ER puts you behind significantly, because I think that it allows for Pacy just get up and weigh the community arguments against some of the engagement arguments that you're going for in your theory debate. I think that if she wins her prerequisite argument for why establishing a community is necessary, especially in context of debate too, I think it's a prerequisite to any risk of participation, or how she allows for things like participation to happen under her roll of the ballot. I think the other things that you need to be answering this roll of the ballot, that's pretty directly. I think that if she wins her roll of the ballot, it's the reason why you don't get any of your limits argument as well as any of your semantic stuff that you're going for, because it doesn't assume the impact framing that Pacy is going for, which I think you need to be answering. That said, so that's the case stuff. I'm not really buying this theory, like the case terms that you're going for. I think you just need to do a better warranted explanation for the terms that you go for. First is that your first argument for identity politics is probably maybe your best one, but I think that you kind of just let Pacy get away with being we're not identity politics, which is false, because the first cross section you asked her, she's yeah, it's identity politics, and I'm just and then halfway through Pacy's hold up, we're not identity politics. I was wait, when did this shift happen, and how are we agreeing to this now? You kind of just push back on her a little bit more on this. The second thing that I'm about, and I think you should be maybe careful about the way you phrase it. I think I get the argument, but the way you frame it is wrong. Is the fetishization of violence or about oppressed bodies. Because I think that if Pacy is right in the first cross section, what she does make is that I'm an Asian woman, therefore this is also part of me. I think it's to say you're fetishizing that. In fact, I don't know if I'm comfortable with that argument in general. I just feel there's another way to make that argument that makes maybe not that you fetishize it, but you allow for debate to fetishize those impacts. I think that's the better articulation of that argument that you were trying to make, was that, and that's the other thing, is that your impact terms that you're going for don't have impacts attached to them. You have the beginning link portion of it, which is you do this, which leads to commodification, but I'm not sure why commodification is bad. I don't know what that leads to, why it matters, why does it impact her ability to solve the community building portion of the 1AC that she's going for. I think all of those things are things that you have set up in the 1AC, in the 1NC, but you just don't utilize later on in the 2NR for me. So there's case. Now on theory, I think this is probably where the debate is the closest, and I think that this is where it gives the most there's the most tension here. I think that you need to be better at answering this the truth testing argument in order for you to win your textuality as well as some of your semantics argument. I don't think that you're losing the semantics debate. I think that you're not winning your semantics debate in context of the truth testing stuff that Pacy is going for. So I think that if you're going to redo this 2NR, you need to start with the semantics portion of it, explain why that impacts Pacy's ability to go for the truth testing argument, as well as the what is the word? The impossibility arguments of because of contradictions means that the AF will never win. I think that those are two offensive reasons why your interpretation specifically is going to be bad, especially coupled with some of the community engagement, psychological violence impacts that you're going for. In case it impacts your ability to be able to go for semantics should come before things like psychological violence or community building, or at least to participation. I think you have all of the right arguments. I just think that you do not use those arguments in the most offensive argument in the most offensive way in the debate. That said, though, I think that the 1ER Pacy was really, really messy, and I think that it was really defensive at best. I think that your saving grace was your overview, but I don't think that on the theory debate you were doing a lot of application, which is I think what split us between Gillian and I, because I think that a lot of your case stuff you were able to spin to make articulations for it, which I think it's in there. I just think that you need to make it more offensive and less defensive as it is right now. And I think that you need to utilize that, Sophia, as a reason why, hey, this 1ER was super defensive. These are the moments in which it was defensive. This is why my offense takes away any ability for any offense from this strategy. And I think that in that word, I can see a world voting for you.
There is just one thought. There's very little theory before K stuff in the 1 and C. So I think that it should have been a much larger part of the 1AR strategy on theory. And also, like, on the underview, like, she conceded the real world standard with carded evidence, so that could have been a good net benefit for the counterintuitive.
Okay, I'm going to go real quick. I don't think any of the case turns actually turn the app. A lot of them about identity being the starting point for discussion. That's bad. It creates binaries. I don't think the app specifically says I use my identity to start discussion. Or if she does, I don't think your 2NR actually impacts these turns to the point where it turns the app and says community healing is bad, because I think that's the advocacy of the affirmative. I was close to voting neg, but I think the app is ahead on a couple framing issues on T. One, textuality doesn't have strong impact, and I don't think there was enough weighing done on why semantics precludes app offense. I agree semantics was kind of not covered in the 1AR, but a couple of reasons why I don't default to it. One, there's a claim about some underview argument that this would allow contradictions, which would make it impossible to affirm. I don't get this argument, but it's just not responded to, and there is weighing for why that precludes your argument, so I default that. And two, I think the argument about how you could read generic neg strats also solves your generic offense. It would allow engagement and the education that she wants, and there wasn't a response to that. To get my bout, the 2NR needed to go harder for why you could not engage. So I think Pacy's questions and cross-ex were really good, where she's like, if I read this as an advantage, what would you have said, right? And the fact that you don't really answer that question makes me skeptical about if she doesn't read it as an advantage, what's the difference? Are you still just going to read T at that point? I don't really think topicality is exclusionary. I don't think those impacts are that strong in this debate, mainly because the 1AR didn't go really hard for those. But I just don't know what ground or limits you lose. What can you not read because of this affirmative? And then to me, I just didn't see a large abuse on the T debate. I ended up voting out because community healing is a unique thing in an institution like debate, and there's a uniqueness level for why that precludes a lot of the T offense, and it's a good idea.
I think the easiest answer to this, bogus, if we read as an advantage, you could read all your generic stuff. You should be no, I don't get picks. Picks are a key way to uniquely debate the methodology of the app. That's ground that's good for us. If you're yep. We should be able to talk about the content of the 1AC. The way that I can talk about the content is through picks. You take away that pick ground, which is bad. That's not okay.
Yeah, or just disad ground generally, disads to other specific HETs that can be weighed, allow for interesting interaction.
Good debate, yeah.
Can I actually ask you one question? So for you,
oh, okay.
For the fetishes, I can't even say the word right now.
Fetishization?
Yes, that.
Okay.
Argument, I was trying to go for it as more of a double bind argument that if she's identity politics, then she doesn't link into that turn and she links into the first one, and if she's not, she engages in it because she's not using her own identity. Should I have explained that more or just not have gone to that turn?
I think that double bind doesn't make sense, right? Because that double bind would assume that Pacy did not say in cross-ex that she was that identity, right? One, I think two, the double bind you should be making is that not that you either talk about yourself, which means your identity politics, or you don't talk about yourself, which means you're not identity, but rather the double bind you should be making is that it's either you are identity politics, which means that you link to the first part, or you are not identity politics, which means that you allow for interpolation to happen.
Okay.
Right, which is the fetishization stuff that communities or the debate community then interpolates what they see, what they understand the app to be, and then use that to commodify or to create other forms of binaries or other forms of identity creations, which is the reason why the app doesn't solve, right? So the app is we should embrace multiplicities of identity. It's no, what actually happens is that communities then create their own forms of identity and are able to bracket out other forms of identity. The reason why the creation of the model minority was created because there was an interpolation of this identity category to be able to use it against other identity categories to turn to the app.
Okay.